What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Benchwarmer Sports. And in today's video, I kind of want to talk to you guys about the recent developments that have been going on with just college football and the Cleveland Browns in general. Because to me, I feel like there is a strong possibility that Shedeur Sanders can be and maybe will be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in 2026. And there's a couple reasons as to why I think this. Mostly number one, because the main guys who are quarterback prospects coming out in the 2026 draft, or at least that many people are theorizing can come out here in the 2026 draft, are very, very raw in their development in terms of being good pro prospects for the NFL level, right? And, there's been a lot of talk, especially around Lenore Sellers, who is this dual threat quarterback from South Carolina, who I'm very high on, and a lot of other people are very high on. And there has been a couple of rumors and reports coming around that basically a lot of NFL teams believe that he's going to return for another year and possibly transfer to another team, which already knocks one of the top quarterback prospects out of the race, right? So then now if that's the case, and Lenora Sellers, who's one of the top prospects in the next couple of drafts in terms of QB prospects, goes back to school for 2027, that leaves you pretty much with guys like Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, and Ty Simpson. Well, the other problem with that is that you got guys who are like Dante Moore and Ty Simpson who are in their first full years as starters in college who are not necessarily, going to have the amount of experience that maybe a lot of these teams who have high picks would necessarily like. Fernando Mendoza is the only quarterback that's going to be out of this group of people that are coming out here who are thought of as high quarterback prospects that have more than 30 starts by the time this season is over. And this is where I feel like Shedeur Sanders is going to benefit the most, right? The Browns have two first round picks in this upcoming draft. And two of the positions of need that the Browns need to address going forward are offensive line and receiver. Shedeur Sanders is going to start this season, right? He's going to start this season some point within the next, I'd say, 3 or 4 weeks. He's going to start a football game for the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns are going to be able to see what they have in Shedeur Sanders for the rest of the season. And I think that, once the Browns make the move going from Dillon Gabriel to Shedeur, you're kind of already saying that you don't believe in Dillon Gabriel and you want to look into what Shedeur has, and that kind of gives you more of a awkward feeling going into next year, especially if the quarterback prospects or the top quarterback prospects that are going to be coming out, or at least supposed to be coming out in this draft, decide to go back to school. And that's what I feel like the Browns, or at least Shedeur Sanders, has an opportunity to really take a hold of, and he can make a really successful push to be the starting quarterback next year in 2026. Dante Moore, by the time this season ends, who's one of the top quarterback prospects and a guy that I'm really looking at, as a draft prospect, he is only going to have 19 or some starts, give or take a start, right? By the end of this. Ty Simpson, first year starter, he's going to have probably 14, 15 starts at the end of this season. These guys are not ready yet to come out and at least have early success. Now, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe they decide to come out, they decide, to heck with, the NIL money that we could get, at Oregon or Alabama or at South Carolina, respective of these different prospects, and they decide they all want to come out at the same time. then this changes. Then you have, if Shedeur plays well, then you have a conversation that needs to be had whether you want to draft a quarterback with your top pick who you think is probably a little bit better than Shedeur, or you maybe go a route where you want to buff up the team around Shedeur and maybe see if Shedeur can really be a game manager, maybe a Brock Purdy type where he's not the best athlete, but you know what? We have talent around him to kind of maximize his potential. That is what the Browns were going to have at least a conversation of going forward if Shedeur Sanders plays well in these couple of games or however many games he starts this season. But to me, with the recent reports of Shedeur Sanders maybe going back to school and his camp, agreeing with NFL scouts who are saying that he needs another year of development at the collegiate level, you have Dante Moore and Ty Simpson, who have sub 20 starts at the end of this season, who are most likely going to go back another year to get a lot more reps and a lot more experience starting in a college and just getting more experience in general of playing football at a high level. This is where Shedeur Sanders is going to thrive, or at least should be able to thrive. Because if the Browns are going to have a quarterback room of Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur comes out here and he plays better than Dillon Gabriel, right? Like we're not talking about like an all-pro level. I know that some of you guys believe that Shedeur Sanders is the next coming of Tom Brady, and that because he worked with Tom Brady, or that Shedeur Sanders can't be an all-pro. Now, personally, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Shedeur Sanders to really believe one way or another that he's either going to be really bad or that he's really going to be any good, okay? I just want to see the guy. I just want to see the guy play football for the Cleveland Browns, okay? And I only saw him twice in the preseason with one good start and one bad performance in the preseason, right? So, to me, if Shedeur Sanders can come out here in these next couple of weeks and play better than Dillon Gabriel, right? The Browns can get better than horrible, historically bad quarterback play from Shedeur Sanders. And if, these collegiate pro prospects like Dante Moore, like Ty Simpson, like Shedeur Sanders, any one of these guys outside of Fernando Mendoza, who are considered the top prospects, the top QB prospects in this draft, if any of these guys decide to go back to school and you're stuck with Fernando Mendoza, Garrett Nussmeier, Carson Beck, Brendan Sorsby, all these guys who are not necessarily the greatest prospects around, this is where I think Shedeur Sanders can most definitely be your QB1 going into next season. And I think that once we see the Browns move off of Dillon Gabriel in the next few weeks, if Dillon Gabriel doesn't turn it around, and I, just being honest, I have no faith that Dillon Gabriel can turn it around and lead the Browns to being some offensive juggernaut, even with Tommy Rees and having a new offensive coordinator and offensive voice calling the plays for Dillon Gabriel. I don't see Dillon Gabriel turning this offense around when you have one, if not no, receivers who are really good at their position. Harold Fannin is a good tight end, but he's a rookie. He's going to get better. Njoku is on the back end of his career. Your offensive line, you have nobody signed for next season that is currently playing offensive line for you right now. This is a situation where if the Browns decide they want to just go out and draft, a Jordan Tyson or a Carnell Tate and, draft a Caleb Lomu or offensive lineman, you want to draft 2 receivers, 2 offensive linemen, whatever they want to do, and beef up the roster around Shedeur Sanders going into next season, the Browns have a lot of possibilities, and I think Shedeur, right now, is a winner in any scenario right here. Because, to me, a lot of the arguments that a lot of the Shedeur fans are making right now is that Shedeur is getting screwed somehow. Like, Shedeur is not getting, his fair due or his due diligence. He's not getting a fair process or a fair shot at becoming the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. But what I would like to tell you guys is that actually, to me, Shedeur Sanders is getting the best treatment out of any quarterback in this process, in this competition that the Browns have had since training camp. And here's why. Dillon Gabriel was supposed to be the third QB on the depth chart going into the season. We've had multiple people come out and tell us that it was going to be Flacco or Pickett, Flacco, Gabriel as the depth chart coming into this season. And then they drafted Shedeur, and Shedeur was QB4. And Shedeur, was getting, all these different reps with, not even with NFL players, he's getting reps with ball boys, right? And they're telling you that he's not ready. And then before the season starts, you get in the preseason, Kenny Pickett hurts his hamstring, so then they trade away Kenny Pickett to the Raiders for a 5th-round pick. So now you're down to Joe Flacco as your starter, Dylan Gabriel as your backup, and Shedeur Sanders as your QB3, right? So then Joe Flacco goes out there, he plays well the first game, and he's downright terrible the other couple of games. And you're stuck with Dylan Gabriel, who's supposed to be your QB3. Now he's your backup. And then 4 weeks into his rookie season, he's going to be thrown out there to play against the Minnesota Vikings, against a Brian Flores defense, who is really good. And they're playing over in London overseas. And Dylan Gabriel is essentially thrown to the wolves because Joe Flacco could not perform at a high level for you. Okay, he couldn't move behind the offensive line that is in tatters and basically throwing to receivers who could not catch syphilis from a toilet seat. Okay, I heard that line from Jason Lloyd, and it was a crazy sentence, but I just had to repeat that because it's just so funny. But you couldn't catch anything. All right. And so, you ship Joe Flacco out of town to Cincinnati. And when Joe Flacco has success throwing to guys like, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Yoshivas, having Chase Brown in the backfield, right? Of course, Joe Flacco's going to have success. And then now you have a problem where you have Dylan Gabriel as your rookie quarterback who you were coming into the season thinking he's going to be third in your depth chart. Now he's suddenly starting like a month into your season. You don't have the receivers that are, you don't have more than one NFL level receiver. Cedric Tillman is not good. He's not, he's injury prone. Isaiah Bond can barely even catch a ball. Jamari Thrash, all these other guys, Gage Larvin, they're not NFL receivers. Quinshon Judkins is fine, but you're running behind the offensive line. You're getting pass protected by this offensive line. So Dylan Gabriel really is taking all the shots and all the heat right now. And week by week, you're seeing him, as his performance is getting worse and worse and worse each and every week. And then on the flip side, Shedeur Sanders doesn't have to play behind this offensive line. He doesn't have to throw to these receivers. He's able to move along at a pace to where he is learning and developing at a safe rate, at a rate where he can feel comfortable, he can work on his mechanics, he can work on things, he can watch film, see things that maybe other people can't see, and maybe when he gets in the game, he can recognize that, oh, I see this from film. This is all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And Shedeur Sanders right now is being more developed, in my opinion, than Dylan Gabriel has been. Because Shedeur Sanders is able to learn and develop at his own pace. He's being able to develop at a rate that Dylan Gabriel has to, be sped up. Dylan Gabriel has to speed everything up. They have to speed everything up for Dylan Gabriel right now because Dylan Gabriel has to start. They're taking their time with Shedeur because they know Shedeur Sanders needs more time to develop. And it's going to benefit Shedeur more in the long term than what they're doing right now with Dylan Gabriel. So when I hear people like Shedeur Sanders fans who are saying that they're clamoring for Shedeur Sanders to play right now, you want Shedeur Sanders to play behind this offensive line who has been nothing but garbage the entire season? You want Shedeur Sanders to throw to Jerry Jeudy and a bunch of, no-name NFL fourth, fifth stringers? You want him to throw to those guys? I'm sorry. I just think that Shedeur Sanders is being, he's having the best process out of anybody right now. And I think that Shedeur Sanders is going to play. Shedeur Sanders is going to play. We know Shedeur is going to play. Ian Rappaport and all these NFL reporters have said so, okay? And I think that we are in a point where, like I said, these draft guys who are coming out who don't have as much experience as the top guys who we thought were going to be the top guys coming into the season, like your Cade Klubniks, your Drew Allers, your Nussmeyers, right? Those guys have the experience, but they're not as talented as the top guys that are supposed to maybe come out in this draft next year. And with Lenore Sellers potential most likely going back to school, Dante Moore more likely than not going back to school, Ty Simpson more likely going back to school. When you're left with Fernando Mendoza, who looks like a good solid prospect, and then the rest is a mixed bag. To me, this is a situation with the Browns and Shedeur Sanders where this is probably the best case scenario for Shedeur Sanders to be the starter next season. And if the Browns are able to bolster the roster, the receiving room, the offensive line room, in the draft and in free agency, and Shedeur Sanders can play just even at an average level. And if you guys who think that Shedeur Sanders is going to be this great quarterback, and if Shedeur Sanders does play to that level, and you build the roster around him by getting a Carnell Tate, you get a Casey Concepcion or a Mekhi Lemon or a Chris Brazzell or Chris Bell in this draft, and you improve the offensive line, then you're going to see success for the Cleveland Browns. But anyways, that's my opinion. Those are my 2 cents. It's a long video, I know, 16 minutes. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you watched the entire thing, make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Follow me on X at Warren Bench. I post a lot on X. You can follow me on that. And we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Okay? Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys all Sunday after the Browns-Jets game. We do our live post-game reaction. And it's going to be a lot of fun, especially after a Tank Bowl versus the Browns and Jets. So I'll see you guys all on Sunday. Take care, everybody.